My name is Anil and I'm a nature photographer. My friends and I recently spent close to a month in the deserts, deltas and forests of Botswana, where we had some intense and up-close wildlife experiences. This is a story from that epic adventure. So we landed in Botswana yesterday, and the first thing we're doing from a photography perspective is this. We're at helicopter horizons. We'll be flying over the Okavango Delta. The first thing about Botswana that I learned, even before Botswana the country, was the Okavango Delta. It's probably the first wildlife documentary I watched, and I'm super excited to get in and get shots of the Delta from the sky. Helicopter horizons, based out of Maun, have open-door helicopters, ideal for photography. After some paperwork and a quick safety briefing by our pilots, we were all set. Oops, sorry, wrong soundtrack. Anyway, as I was saying, we were off after a quick briefing, and before we knew it, we were over the Delta. I've been fascinated by the Okavango Delta since I first heard about it, and the more I learn, the more I'm in awe. The reason the Delta exists is as much the desert, as much as it is the seasonal rains in the Angolan Highlands, thousands of kilometers away. This rainwater flows down to Namibia and then meets the dry Kalahari Desert in Botswana. The surge flows 1200 kilometers in about a month and then spreads over the Delta over the next 4 months. So vast and dry this area, and so low its gradient, that it makes the Okavango Delta one of the few river ecosystems in the world that doesn't flow into a sea or an ocean, but gets absorbed by the earth instead. As a result, an otherwise dry desert becomes a thriving ecosystem and a haven for wildlife. It was hard to photograph for the first few minutes, because anywhere I looked, there was a beautiful and unique habitat image to be made. So I did the best I could out of a fast-moving helicopter. We'd also timed our flight to make the most of the golden hour, and it made me wonder if the term golden hour applied as perfectly anywhere else as it did over the Delta that evening. The flight was only 45 minutes long, so I was wondering if we'd see any wildlife at all, but I was so wrong. We saw hippos and crocodiles at almost all the pools we flew over. We saw elephants everywhere, in the water, walking up to the water, and in the dry pans between water. Giraffe, zebra, wildebeest, and a number of other species of antelope were aplenty too. But for me, the standout sighting was a large herd of buffalo. I knew Cape buffalo herds were big, but this one had over 500 buffaloes, and they spread over such an enormous space, maybe a couple of kilometers long and wide. At one point, the entire landscape was dotted in buffaloes. Towards the end of the flight, I put the camera away. It was for an 8-year-old me who had just watched his first wildlife documentary, which happened to be on the Okavango Delta. That was also my first glimpse into the magical continent that is Africa. Though I've been to Africa before, this felt like a first, because this is what sparked my love for wildlife. Long before I bought a camera, long before I had a passport, and probably before I could spell words like continent or Africa. This was just the perfect start to my Botswana adventure. For now, I'd bid goodbye to the Delta and riverine ecosystems and head towards the drier pans, starting with the Khama Rhino Sanctuary, where I had some spectacular rhino sightings. More on that in my next video.